Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's show on Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio, the voice of the American Consortium for Equity in Education. And the voice you're hearing is me, Larry Jacobs. And thanks for being with us today. I'm your host today. We've got a lovely show for you with an old friend, Jackie Smalls. Jackie I love Jackie's background, okay? She is the VP of Social Impact Coalitions at Discovery Education, okay? But prior to being a teacher, Jackie served in the United States Army for 8 years as an environmental science officer, okay? And thanks for that. Thanks for doing that, Jackie. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we bring you on. We're going to talk about the sustainability in growing student interest in STEM. We got to do this, and that's hard to do. And I've had some personal experience with that with members of my family. So we'll talk about all that detail, what the STEM Careers Coalition does, and why schools need to know about it, and helping them create kids that are interested in the STEM profession. All right, it's that simple. And we'll talk to Jackie about it. We're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org. Please go over there. Everything we do over there is free for educators, actually free for everybody. All right. We have our magazine, Equity and Access, over there. Just click on the cover. It's an online journal. It's a beautiful issue. You'll really enjoy it. We have all our podcasts over there. You'll see the link, all kinds of news and information also about our Excellence in Equity Awards program for educators. Check that out. You'll see the link. All right. It's really, really interesting what we're trying to do over there. We believe that equity is really important, giving every kid the education they particularly deserve. Okay. Doing everything we can to actually make that happen. Okay. With all the right products and services that are available to you. Please go over there, check it all out, get involved with us, join the consortium. It's free. Please feel free to nominate companies you work with. Please feel free to nominate yourself, educators, et cetera, who are working in equity. You'll see all the rules under the Excellence in Equity Awards link. All right, again, at ace-ed.org. And without further ado, let me bring on Jackie Smalls. There she is. Hi, Jackie. Welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again, Larry.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Former environmental science officer and now VP of Social Impact Coalition. That's pretty cool over at Discovery Education. That's a nice, great leap in career. How'd you do all that? What got you into teaching after the Army, right?
Well, it's a long story, but I will make it short.
I'm sure. Make it short. Yeah,
I will.
It's a great career.
I will. I mean, I always had a love for education. Even when I was in the Army, I was the one that was volunteering to have, our Army soldiers and officers support our local school districts, whether it be beautification of schools or just, whatever they needed support in, extra because we read to the kids. So I always had that interest. So the opportunity came when I actually left the Army. I went through a transitioning teaching program through Howard University. It was an accelerated program. Yeah, for those that already had a background in science. So naturally, there were some credits that I was able to apply to my certification. And I started teaching in one of the largest urban school districts, Prince George's County in Maryland, and became a third grade teacher. And I just saw the natural connections between science and education and math and engineering, because I was doing all that in the Army. But how could I make it, come alive for students in the classroom? So for me, it was a natural transition and, just making science, technology, engineering, and math exciting for kids to learn and also see someone that actually was doing it for a living for quite some time. So it was a great opportunity.
Jackie, that's a fabulous background. I really mean it. That just goes to show how powerful an educator you are. Okay, it's great. Congrats to Discovery Ed for finding you and bringing you onto the team. I think it's great. And you basically run the STEM Careers Coalition over there. And just tell everybody what that is, okay, where they can learn more about it, et cetera. And then we'll go from there. STEM Careers Coalition.
Absolutely. And, like you mentioned before, the platform that you've created and access to resources are free and accessible. So is the resources for the STEM Careers Coalition.
There you go.
So if you go to stemcareerscoalition.org, that's where you will find our resources. And the STEM Careers Coalition really is trying to connect the dots between the classroom and careers to show students how they can use their STEM skills to make a difference in the world? How do they learn that, the standards that they have in science and the standards that are within math? Kids always get the question. I know I always got it when I was in the classroom. When am I ever going to use that skill? Why would I ever use this? Why am I learning
That's right.
this? Well, we're trying to connect those dots for them to say, here's where those skills would apply within a STEM field, and try to give them a really good diverse view of what careers exist in STEM, so they can see themselves in STEM, and making sure those that we have represented in the resources also represent students and who they look like, so they can make those natural connections to say, one, answer several questions. I never knew that was a possibility, trying to spark that curiosity for them to even go deeper into a topic or to understand that career path even more. But we're hoping to spark that curiosity as well as give them really high quality resources so that they're also developing their STEM skills as well.
That's fantastic. And, one of the interesting things about that, and STEM is, obviously everybody knows this, the acronym is science, technology, engineering, and math. And one of the challenges, and you kind of brought this up, don't understand. And I'll just use my least favorite subject, math. Okay? When I was a kid. And I think 98% of the world will probably agree with me. Okay? But my point is, okay, if math is taught in a vacuum, okay, you don't even understand why you're learning it, all right? And STEM work, STEM professions are not done in a vacuum, okay? Everything you learn kind of comes together. This is many professions, but particularly in STEM, it is literally your knowledge of science, technology, engineering, and also, I might add, social impact. You have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. All right, and
absolutely,
we can isolate the subjects. And one of the things that I like about the STEM Careers Coalition is that you try to break down the barriers, if I may, and show the kids that you got to know math, but you got to know science, and you got to know history too. Okay, you got to figure out if you're building this thing, how the hell will you go watch Oppenheimer? Okay, how will it affect society? Okay, and when you can see STEM professionals at work, and we're going to talk about all the companies you work with, but when kids can see STEM professionals at work, suddenly it all becomes more real, all right, as opposed to some thing up in the clouds that you'll never get to. But to me, it's just very, very important. Your VP of Social Impact Coalitions, STEM is a social impact situation. That's simple. Your thoughts,
absolutely.
Jackie? Now that I'm done my rant, can you go on? Yes.
No, but you touched on so many things, and that's, not making STEM seem so complex that it's a scary thing for folks. You mentioned your least favorite subject in math. Well, if students can make those connections, if they can see how an engineer understands how angles might exist if it's, an architect, or how math applies to what they're trying to solve for in creating and building a device perhaps to solve for a problem, like as simple as a seatbelt. Like if you think about, well, why, where does math play in the development that an engineer somewhere said, we need to figure out how we can stop the velocity or acceleration in a car that would prevent somebody from being harmed. So all of those connections are being made, and I can tell you I've seen it firsthand. When students see those connections, they're even that more excited and intrigued to learn about them, and it doesn't become this scary thing for them. So that's where we're trying to bring real-world application into the classroom. And Discovery's Education Partnership, as you mentioned, with several industry leaders, is trying to solve for that, not just solve for the gaps that we see in STEM and the resources that exist, and make sure they're accessible to all students, because that's also an equity issue, making sure that all of the resources are equitable and have students and teachers have access to them. But we're also trying to solve for that diversity challenge that we see in STEM. Statistically, women only comprise only 24% of the STEM workforce. So our attempt to make sure young women can see themselves in the resources that we have, so they could say, one day I might do that. There's an engineer that works with Boeing that we feature, who's one of our partners. And to hear her speak and tell her story about, this is how I work with the folks that actually build the airplane, and I'm thinking about the customer experience. Perhaps you're not building the airplane, but you're also working with the engineers that help build the airplane. Students might have not even thought about that as an opportunity.
That's right.
So that's what we want to highlight, and we want to highlight it in a way again, that doesn't seem so far away or unrealistic to them. And that's where we've come together with several industry partners trying to solve for that problem, knowing that it's the earliest we can touch students and there is interest around STEM, it takes away that stigmatism of it's not for me. And that's really what we want to do in terms of having these resources, connecting discovery education resources to real-world application, to real people that are actually doing the work, just makes it that much more tangible for all students.
And I'm going to ask you two questions. A, when people go, and I know this, but I want you to articulate it, please. When people go to STEMcareerscoalition.org, okay, what will they see? How can they use that in their classrooms? And then B, actually it's part of the same question, who are, okay, your corporate partners? Because you go out and you get these great companies. I've worked with a lot of them here on the podcast, okay? They join up with you because they are concerned about education, okay? They want, but it's a, I want to say this the right way, it's self-serving. It's wonderful that they're doing this. Please don't misunderstand that. But it's self-serving. They need employees in the future. And if they don't step up and get the, talk about who they are, why they do what they do, and how you work with them is a big question. And then what's there on site so that teachers can understand, have a good reason to go there. Jackie, you're on. Please answer in less than 10 seconds. That was a joke.
Less than 10
seconds. A giant question.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, we are an educational organization, and first and foremost is to make sure that we have resources that are high quality for educators K through 12 and students to interact with. And so that's our primary goal. How can we make sure that there's classroom accessible resources, and that's powered by the partnerships that we have, and we're featuring careers that, like you said, that are in terms of our partners, we're featuring their career profiles. So if students were to go to STEMcareerscoalition.org, they're going to see a career finder where they're going to see an opportunity to sort by any particular career that they want to learn more about, or a teacher can connect it to exactly what they want to teach in our classroom. Like if they're teaching a certain standard around math or around English language arts, they can see those connections that we help make with the resources that we have available. Because not only is it just a career profile, it's also activities to engage students around that career profile. We also highlight students' voice. I really want to point that out because, as you said, it may seem self-serving for an organization to say, here's what an employee at, I'm not going to mention all of them because we have 27
You can mention any of them.
that we work with. But, we do have our partners like Caterpillar, like Boeing, PepsiCo, Cox, and Keysight Foundation. So we have many different organizations because we want to represent the diverse careers that each of them have. But we also have a new way and approach that we're also featuring these career profiles. It's starting with the student's voice. A student saying, have you ever wondered, what does a building engineer do? Who actually we know that someone builds the building, but who actually takes care of the building once it's constructed? Who's looking at how everything is running within the building, that's running correctly, and it's in a student's voice. So again, seeing students excited about STEM and then applying the real-world application, really trying to make it an authentic experience for students as much as possible. So we do that with the partnership because we saw it when we were founded in 2019 that there was an issue, that there was a lack of highly curated resources that really profile a diverse group of careers as well as people. So who better to do that than Discovery Education, where it's our business to make sure that students have these high quality resources, and then go to the experts in the field that have people that are working in these career pathways, and how can we highlight the diversity that actually we want to see in STEM, and how can we do that in a very thoughtful way?
Exactly, and it's really it's a triple win. It's a win for Discovery, it's a win for all those companies, your corporate partners, and it's a win for the educators and the kids. Okay, it's that simple.
Yes,
and again, I want to emphasize it's no charge. Go over there and check all this out. There's great stuff over there. And while I talk about, and I have to say, I've got to preface this like these companies, and it's hard to imagine they don't, but they actually do care. okay, about what is going on. This goes way beyond just, getting employees for the future. They care about their impact on the world, okay? They really do, all right? And it's easy to say they don't, but they do, all right? And just put that into the perspective of the STEM Careers Coalition. Just the social, I think some people think, that if I go into a career like this, I'm not going to have that social impact, okay? I'm just doing it for whatever reason, but that's not true. That's not true, okay? It has a giant social impact. And just, Jack, if you want to talk about that, I'd love to hear. Environmental, social, and governance model is all of this for the corporate social responsibility world. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Jackie. We know statistically that consumers now have a voice in what we're seeing as we're using the products of the very organizations that we're working with. So how can they be responsible to make sure that we are taking care of the natural resources that we are creating these products with, right? And so students, naturally, we're seeing an abundance of students wanting to have a voice and say in what we're doing to our environment and how we're taking care of it. And so how can we do that in a way that we have resources that don't highlight necessarily the efforts of the organization, but we're highlighting the issue, the environmental issue that comes with creating such products, the social human impact that it has. And so how can we leverage the student's voice and take an action and say local community issues that are also reflected globally? I always reflect back on Little Miss Flint. If you remember the Flint, Michigan water crisis, right? And so you had a student, you had an 11-year-old student that it's still ongoing, but you had an 11-year-old student in that community saying, this is not just an adult issue. This is an issue for me and my environment and my peers. 11 years old. Help me figure out how we're going to solve this problem. And her voice was elevated to the point where she had some political figures join her in Flint to bring visibility to the issue. But could you imagine if we had the resources in the classroom to connect that voice and learning at the same time? So again, it's not a disconnected voice of what students are learning in the classroom, but how can we productively help teachers and students figure out ways to solve these issues and also talk about them and bring about action in their local community. So again, I think it's a way to help problem solve, bring students' active voice to the table, and elevate, because they really have concerns. And it's not the problem that we want them to inherit. It's a problem that we want to recognize that they have just as much interest as everyone else.
Exactly. And by the way, I hate to say it, I think that there's still problems with water in Flint. It's out of the headlines, so to speak. But I think the good people of Flint still are having aggravation from it, and long-term stuff. It's terrible. It was a disgrace. Let me put that. It was a disgrace, and those people responsible for it should have been in jail. Okay, it's a damn disgrace, and I'll just say that point blank. Okay, it's disgrace. An American city. Can you imagine? Okay, beyond belief. Okay. And the people who are going to save us are the people we're trying to talk about here. It's unbelievable. Where do you see all this? You're ahead of this. Where do you see all this in pre-K-12 education? And I know you're going to say, we see it through every grade. Okay, talk about that. I mean, where do you want teachers to start using this? And this is key. What teachers do you want to start using this? People see STEM, they immediately think science, the first one. Okay. But see, this also belongs in social studies, okay? And all you have to do is watch the movie, again, watch the movie Oppenheimer. It's about the development of the atomic bomb, science, okay, and its social impact, okay?
Exactly.
That's social studies. And that's what actually the movie actually balances, okay, is those two things, all right? And where do you see the STEM Careers Coalition and all the materials that Discovery's put up there with your partner's help? Where do you see it in K-12? Where do you see it? What are you hearing?
Well, I see it everywhere. I mean, like you just nailed it when you said, it doesn't have to just belong in a math classroom. It doesn't have to belong just in a science classroom. This, what I'd like to say is STEM is cross-cutting all subject areas. So this is an
I
opportunity
agree.
for students to learn in all subjects, in science, in technology, in how do you write about it, right? And so that, writing comes into play. How do you communicate what you're learning as you're trying to grapple with certain issues that STEM helps to try to solve? And so there's all different skills that students are trying to learn. And if you think about STEM activities, K-12, it may look different in a kindergarten classroom than it looks in a 12th grade classroom. But what we're hoping to also focus on is curiosity, creativity, collaboration, and communication, what we call the 4 C's. How can we make sure the resources that we have are driving those conversations in the classroom and they show up in every subject area, not just the ones that are emphasized by the acronym STEM, but how can we help? To me, I think, STEM helps to connect all subject areas in a very authentic way. And how can we bring real-world application through the resources as we highlight this career profile, right? But how we talk about, like you said, the development of the atomic bomb. There's so many subject levels that fits in there. And, again, the social impact of it all. The social impact and the responsibility that comes along with solving problems that we are trying to through STEM education. And, again, how do we make it as early as possible and accessible to the youngest learner and accessible to everyone? You started the segment talking about equity. It's not just for the districts that have all the resources for a particular STEM program.
Good
we want to make sure that all teachers have access to the resources. And so part of the STEM Careers Coalition, one of the pillars that we have is direct investment in schools. So there's meaningful investment that our partners make into developing these resources, but also closing gaps where resources might not be readily available for those districts that are under-resourced.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a second, because I know you do that, and thank you for bringing that up. Equity. We're the American Consortium for Equity in Education. We care about this. So do you guys. All right? And talk about that reach out, okay, to the, quote, under-resourced schools. And I want to say again, everything they're doing at STEMcareersCoalition.org is free, okay? And if you can access it, your school is no longer, this is just one of many things that are of no cost out there, but it's free, all right? And if you can access it, your school is no longer under-resourced, all right? That's a pretty simple formula, speaking of math, okay? And we, talk about that, Jackie. How are you, are you really reaching out, if I may, to those schools that really need it the most? And you know what I mean when I say that.
Sure. I mean, I can give several examples where that is taking place. And the largest impact, and I'll highlight one of our partners. If you look at our partner in Delaware, so the state of Delaware, we have a partnership with the entire state of Delaware. So all students at the high school level will have access or has access to all of Discovery Education resources, to include the STEM Careers Coalition resources. So it's a partnership between the state, DuPont, who is presently, has a huge footprint in the state of Delaware, and how we all came together to say, how can we all come together to really focus on STEM, to focus on CTE, and do so in a thoughtful way so teachers don't necessarily have to pick and choose. What's this resource is over this resource? We know a teacher's time is very valuable. So we've created a partnership where all students, like I said, in the high school have access to these resources, and they don't have to spend money or funds for it because we've had that partnership with DuPont. So that's just one example. But
it's a great example.
Yeah,
it's a great example.
It's
I grew up in Philly. I went to college.
Our statewide partnership.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, I grew up in Philly. I went to college right by the state of Delaware. It was about 10 miles away from where I went to school. And, DuPont has a tremendous impact in Delaware, but they have a tremendous impact globally. Okay? They're a good example of the kind of company you work with. That's all I'm going to say. It's just amazing how powerful they are. Yeah.
And I'll take it one step further. We also have, employee engagement. So while we also have these resources, the STEM Careers Coalition is powerful in that there's plenty of opportunities. We're asked all the time, and it's our pleasure to do so. There might be a local STEM fair or a local STEM community event. We have speakers that we provide to those events from those that are in that career field. We can do that physically, or we can even do that remotely now that we know the power of, virtual opportunities to even pop into the classroom. So again, it's not just about the static resources that we have in terms of instructional resources. It's also about the interaction with employees as well.
And it makes the employees feel better and employee retention that much more because they feel like they're really doing something outside of their job. It's just and making that come alive to the community. It's really just so darn important. There's just great stories out there and the good work you're doing. And I as we wind down, I want to emphasize this again. Discovery sells to school districts all over the country. They have great products, but they work hard to produce free materials for you as well. Things that you can use every day, all right? And they don't want schools to be under-resourced. They work hard, and I'm going to say this, your corporate partners are depending on you to create the right materials that can really be used, okay, in a classroom pre-K-12. All right. And by the way, I loved what you said a few minutes ago, Jackie, that STEM there's a difference the way you teach STEM in 12th grade and kindergarten. And I would agree with that statement. I hope so. Okay. There's a difference, but we got to move those kids along. All right. And not let them lose interest because this stuff is really, really important. It's really important. We're going to wind down. Any last words, Ms. Smalls? VP?
Oh, the last words that I would say again, Discovery Education at the heart of it is really focused on how can we provide those high quality vetted resources. The impact the STEM Careers Coalition has made with the partnership of several, like I said, industry partners. I named a few. But in 1 year alone, Larry, we reached over 3,650 schools in terms of those that were under-resourced, as well as over 250,000 educators and 2.3 million students in a year's time. And the majority of that is 77% of Title I schools. So when you talk about social impact, we're talking about, when you say Title I schools, we're talking about those that are under-resourced, have free and reduced lunches in terms of the economic status that exists within that community or that district. We are really trying to, again, close that diversity gap with this partnership and what the STEM Careers Coalition seeks to reach 10 million. That's our goal. And so I invite everyone to please visit stemcareerscoalition.org, give us your feedback, make sure you use the resources. And again, we're representing the various diverse opportunities that exist because everyone should be a part of STEM.
What was your rank in the Army, Jackie?
When I left, I was captain promotable to major, so I was moving my way up there.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Captain almost Major Jackie Smalls, okay, who's the VP of Social Impact Coalitions, who lives this life every single day. Jackie, you're really terrific. Okay, you're doing great work out there. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Larry, and thank you for putting the spotlight on equity and all the great topics that you have on this forum. We really appreciate you having us as a guest.
You're always welcome here, Jackie. Believe me, you are always welcome here, you and your partners, okay? Have a good week. I'll talk to you later, okay?
Thank you so much. You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jack. Bye-bye. Is she the best or what, everybody? I mean, really, where do you get people like this, okay? Serves in the Army, goes back to school, becomes an educator, teaches third grade science, blah, 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 is now vice president of Social Impact Coalitions over at Discovery Ed. And she works, it's discoveryed.com, but she works literally at this website, stemcareerscoalition.org. Okay, and that's Jackie Smalls, amazing. All right. We'll archive the show over at ace-ed.org, and I hope you go visit there and see all the stuff we do, all about equity, etc. I'm Larry Jacobs, Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio, which is the voice of the American Consortium for Equity in Education. Thanks so much for being here.